we literally have to change our own life. If you don't like what you are doing now or how your life is, whether it's a relationship with your job, with your finances, everything about in life you don't like, you change it. How? You have to just totally take a different action.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Welcome back, everyone, to the No Labels, No Limits podcast, a show where we explore the journeys of those who break boundaries and defy labels to create significant impact in the world, their fields, and in their lives and the lives of others. And, I usually chat with my guests before we push record and get going. And we're chatting around about food and background and marriage. And I'm thinking, I better hit record because you're really going to love our guest today. We have with us Yong Kim-Manzolini, a former orphan turned millionaire, and which sounds magnificent, but her story is even more so. But she's a lifestyle mentor and an accomplished options trader. And I had the privilege of watching some of her YouTube videos. They're very short, very engaging and helpful. So I think you'll enjoy that piece because I really didn't know how she approaches options trading, how that relates to me personally as a woman. But her story really is a testament to the power of resilience and the profound impact of financial literacy. And we need that. We need that. So with that, let me formally welcome Yong Kim-Manzolini to the podcast. Good morning, Yong.
Good morning, Sarah.
So will you add a little bit to my very short description of your long accomplishment?
Sure. Do you guys have 30 years? No, just kidding.
Well, I can edit into multiple episodes, so just go. No,
I'm sure you can.
I think it's important to know where you came from.
Yeah, sure. Basically, when I was a little girl, I was born in South Korea. My mother passed away. She went into a room to have a baby, deliver a baby. And I remember sitting by her door where she went in to deliver a baby. And it seems like it was a long day. I waited there all day long and she never came out. So as a little girl, I just thought, okay, I don't know what happened to my mom, but I heard a baby crying. And so thinking, okay, my mom, I think, died and maybe there was a newborn baby. So, which was true, imaginations. I was just waiting there. And then right after that, my dad decided to abandon me and my sister, and he just left. Didn't tell us where he was going or anything. He just kind of left. And so my sister and I, we ended up in an orphanage, one of the orphanage. And my sister was a little bit older than me. I was probably about 4 years old at the time. And she was working there as a kind of like a helping with the staff at the orphanage. Well, there's a couple of things happened in that orphanage. One was a profound information that instilled in my mind was that when I was living there, I heard staff picking up the babies from the front door, and they would talk about how they picked up another baby by the front door, and they were just crying. Baby was crying and everything. So right then, and those mamas, I thought, oh, my family's normal, because I thought, other people were leaving the babies by the orphanage door, and the staffs were picking up, and I said, okay, it's normal. So all right, I could handle that. And then, so that was, something that I got out of that orphanage. And then another thing happened to me was at that orphanage, I was looking out the window, there was a big window from floor to top window. And I noticed the other kids were playing, and I thought, I want to play. I want to go outside and play. But why can't I play? Well, see, I couldn't walk. I could not walk at all. So I don't know if my sister saw that or not, but she never was next to me. She was always working. And one day, out of the blue, she just told me, she showed me the picture of another orphanage, and she says, Son, this is the place I'm going to take you. And I said, what are you talking about? It's like, you have to go here. And I said, no, I don't. I said, are you going to come with me? She says, well, yeah, I think so. And I said, as long as we're together, but, I don't want to really go anywhere. And she said, you have to go because this is where they're going to teach you how to walk. And I said, I don't care to learn to walk. I just want to be with you. I just lost mom. We lost our dad. You're the only person that I have hope that's going to take care of me. And so I just wanted to just be with her, and I didn't care about anything about having to walk or nothing. So she took me to another orphanage. And when I went to a second orphanage, it was just shocking, Mom. And I thought, I have never seen so many handicapped kids in my life. I have never seen all at once. Like, we went into the orphanage, and one of the staff worker there was talking to, my sister, and I was greeting. And I looked around, I was so scared because I thought, I have never seen so many people that are abnormal. Like, because I saw my sister, walking normally. I saw other kids playing in the orphanage. So then my sister says, this is where you're going to learn to walk. I can't teach you, but they could teach you. And I said, but I don't want to walk. Stay with me. And I think it was the longest separation that I have ever felt in my life. I was hanging onto her hands so tight, didn't want to let her go. And I think we were there probably like 5-6 hours. I think she was trying to talk to the staff worker that if she could stay there. But she couldn't because she was walking normal. It was only for the handicapped kids. So she finally had to lie to me and saying that she had to go to the bathroom. And I said, can I go with you? I want to go. I could go. We always went to the bathroom together. You know what I mean? You took me there because I can walk. And she says, no, I promise I'll be back. And I didn't trust her, but I had to let her go because she said she had to go to the bathroom. So I let her go, let go of her hand. And I waited all day long in the orphanage, just until dinner time. And it was just very, very, that's the moment where I lost trust with people. I hated the world. And I just feel like she left me there in such a cold place just to survive. And from that moment on, for about 10 years that I lived in orphanage, I never spoke to hardly anybody. I didn't smile. I have no reason to smile. I have no reason to talk to anybody because I trusted her, and she ended up leaving me. So as I was living there, I noticed after like a week or two later, I noticed other kids were getting around, and I thought, I have to get around like them. And I used to just screw around like this with my hip, and I couldn't even get up on the wheelchair. So my goal was to observing other kids, and I thought, I have to get around, and you know what? I'm going to learn to walk, and I'm going to help other people carry them on my back to get to places. That was my main goal.
What a big heart. I mean, after suffering all of that and feeling so abandoned and betrayed, to then have that heart to go, I'm going to learn to walk and carry other people. I mean, that's a huge metaphor for life, Sung-Yong.
Well, at that time, that's all I wanted to do is because there were younger kids, that couldn't even really move around. They couldn't even feed themselves, things like that. So I learned to walk when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And I learned to walk by just hanging on to the rails that they had a long rails all over the wall. So people could hang on to it and do wheelchairs and things like that. And one of the staff members showed me, you hang on to the rail, you stand up, sit down, stand up and sit down and take a step at a time when you feel you can. It took me 2 years. We didn't have a physical therapist or occupational, nobody, like Americans have. Just me and myself. Every day, that was my goal, just hanging on, and other kids will, wheelchair by me, and with the crutches walking by me, and, they're just cheering me on. But they encouraged me. They encouraged me to learn to walk. So when I was about 6, 7 years old, I remember standing up on my own. There was nothing around me, like nothing to hang on to. And the staff worker says, take a walk, take a step. And I'm like, are you sure? I said, I need something to hang on to. And she says, because they watched me, how I was practicing every day for a couple of years. And she said, you could take a step. And I said, are you sure? Are you sure the floor is not going to move? So I stood up, and I remember taking a step with my right foot. I was so shaky. I thought the floor was going to move, and I have nothing to hang on to, nobody to hang on to. And then when floor did not move, I was just like, and I took another step up with my left leg. Wow. So I quickly volunteered. I became a gopher. I did all the errands for everybody. Even they gave me a little white dress to wear and called me little nurse. And I thought, I don't want to be a nurse. I just want to be like running errands for people. I could walk now. I was able to walk without any crutches. I was just walking, and I carry, younger kids back my, how traditional Korean people carry their babies on their back. I was just so happy, and the place was 100% handicapped kids, 80% had a family, 20% kids did not have a family, and that was me, of that 20%. So living there, I tried to run away so many times because I could walk now and I could run. So life was really scary in there too. And so I just tried to run away a couple of times. But another profound thing that happened to me that I look back, over the years that I realized within last probably about 10 years was that I want something and I go for it. So in other words, like I don't give myself an excuse. So one day in an orphanage, I want to chew a gum because some of my friends that had a family, they had a family visit them, gave them a candy, money, and gum. And I saw some of my friends that had a family was chewing a gum. And I thought, I want to chew a gum just like them. And I was so embarrassed to ask them for a piece of gum. I'm sure they would have given it to me, but I was embarrassed. Besides, you gotta remember at the time I didn't speak to anybody, because I was also born with a hair lip. And so whenever I smiled or talked, I thought that my hair lip was going to split more wider. So all just things that as a little girl that I didn't know, right? I didn't know. I just thought, well, I hate life. I don't trust anybody. Besides, if I smile, this is going to split even bigger. And I have no reason to talk to anybody because I don't care at the point. And so I was too embarrassed and too shamed. And plus, I wasn't a very talkative person. So I said, okay, I'm going to chew gum. I want to taste the gum. And so what I did is one of my girlfriends and we went outside of the orphanage and we found the gum on the street outside of the building. And I'm sure the gum's been chewed on or walked on so many times. And I literally picked it up from the cement, the people were walking. And I had to peel off some of the big rocks, and then I chewed. And I got to taste gum, and it was kind of crunchy because there was still little teeny pebbles. But you know what? You know how, like, I'm a grandmother and I'm a mother of 4 kids. Knowing that, when kids did something, some of the kids, they try something, goes, oh, this is cool. So that was me. I thought, this is so cool. I got to chew gum. So at the time, I didn't realize that I accomplished the goal. All I was like, this is so cool. I chewed my gum, right? And then at age 14, going forward now, age 14, there's an American family that wanted to adopt a special needs child. And I belong to that category of special needs child because of my age, being 14, because 14 is the cutoff. You cannot adopt anybody older at the time. So 14 was the cutoff. And then plus I was handicapped. I couldn't walk, but I did walk. But, in the beginning I could not walk. Plus I had a hair lip. And so they adopted me. And so I came to US at age 14. And I remember I had to face a lot more struggles, a lot of obstacles, because here I am. I lost trust with everybody and accepting that somebody wants me. It's like, what? Somebody wants me just the way I am? And then also I have to learn to love them. And I said,
Now, so Yong, did you speak any English?
No, not at all.
So not only that, but your adopted parents, did they speak any Korean?
No.
Okay. You're a brave woman.
Not at all. Not at all. And actually, I think the reason they adopted me because they adopted a little Korean girl at age 4 years old. And she was such an angel. She was so good. So they thought they would give it another try with another. They had 6 of their own kids. Just to tell you, they had their own, birth kids, 6 of their own. They adopted a little 4-year-old Korean girl. She didn't speak English, but when they were writing to me and saying, we want to adopt you. And then they says, we have a Korean girl. And I was so excited because I thought, I could talk Korean when I get adopted by this family. Found out she didn't speak any, she couldn't speak any Korean, or maybe she did, but they couldn't understand each other because my parents didn't speak. And so when I was adopted at age 14 and we communicated with each other with dictionaries back and forth. Or like, I'm hungry, like a sign language and things like that, just made up sign language, right? Anyway, but I'm always, it's a part of me. It's like everything that I do, I just want to share the good life of me. And so I was able to talk to my parents, my mom with the dictionary and saying, I have some friends in Korea, they need family. And so happened, my parents were presidents of the adoption agency in Utah in 1975. That's when they adopted me. I came over in May, May 27th, and I just barely turned 14 on May 18th. And so it was just like,
right in the cutoff zone.
Right at the cutoff zone, exactly. So they announced it in the newspaper, saying that there are some Korean children that are handicapped kids, special needs kids need some families. And so a lot of them, like at least a dozen of kids got adopted by people from Salt Lake, Centerville, Farmington, like you name it, So I was so grateful that, a lot of my friends got to come over, but there was one girl.
Your own community. It's lonely here. I need my friends.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking about how they were thinking because we had a Peace Corps worker at the orphanage at one time, and she promised us that when she went back to America, because she was there for like a year or two as a Peace Corps worker, and she promised us that she would try to have a family adopt us. But a couple years went by, no news, nothing came about. And so we used to dream about like, Miss Jen, she's gonna, find us a family. It never happened. I remember wishing for those days, and I thought about myself like, well, here I am, but my friends are left alone, and they're gonna be lonely just like how I was, So anyway, so it's all about sharing. Like I can't just be happy with happiness just within myself, And worst thing it could happen is like, well, my mom and dad could say, well, we adopted you and it was very difficult and there's nothing we could do. But you gotta ask, because if you don't ask, it's 100% no. If you ask, there's a 50% yes. That's what I think.
Well, that's true, right? No one knows what's internal to you.
Yeah.
It's only like if you ask, at least you have an option. You've got to change. Right?
Yes. So quickly forward. So do you have any questions?
I do, because this to me sounds like it so has been a motivation for you mentoring and teaching folks. So I'm wondering if you could jump in and talk about then how you came to write books and teach courses and use mentoring, and you really target single moms, right?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that and how, because now we get this sense of this really determined young girl, in her teens, who has brought her friends over through her own asking of her parents and her parents taking action on her behalf.
Right.
How did you move into doing that work, mentoring and helping others, writing books?
Boy, it's so full of opportunity. I took actions just to make it sure. But it wasn't that easy. So basically when I was given an opportunity to have a better life, I did everything what my parents taught me to do, like go to school, get a good grades, and go to college. And so I landed as a certified medical assistant for 33 years, and I loved it. It was like my dream job. It was my dream job. I was like excited to go to bed night before just to get up in the morning, just to go to work. That's how excited I was every single day for 33 years. But there's a lot of lessons. I watch people because I didn't have nobody to really watch, as a birth parents to watch. But everything comes from watching people, realizing there's a people out there doing things. There's a people out there being rich. There's a people out there becoming like never heard of, And so as I was observing and learning the lessons from my patients, I thought, I wanted to retire early. Why? Because I wanted to share the things that I have overcome, the things that I have learned as a teenager, as a young adult, as a mother, as a grandmother. The things that I learned, if I don't share with people, I feel like life wouldn't be fair. And I would feel selfish because I have learned so much from life, so much that I can't even begin to tell you how many lessons I'm still learning. But I have learned so much. I'm so grateful for everything that I have. I just said, I have to accomplish this. I didn't think about becoming an author. I didn't think about becoming an entrepreneur. I didn't think of any of that at all. I just wanted to share my really shameful, ugly stories that I thought that I never wanted to tell anybody. I wanted to hide them. I didn't want people to judge me. So with wanting to retire early, I didn't have any money to retire, but I didn't care about that. I just wanted to retire and I wanted to stay home with the kids because, after being married with my first husband for 14 years, was in a very, a mental and like a domestic violence marriage. And so I divorced and found myself as a single mother raising 3 girls. And I worked so many days. I worked like 6, 7 days a week. My day up, I would sell vacuums at night. On the weekends, I would clean the houses. I had a 7 homes to clean, detail house cleaning business. I did a catering business on top of my medical assisting 40-hour job, my dream job. But other jobs were not my dream job, but I was grateful because I had a chance to make extra money, to make the ends meet as a single mother. So not having any money, I just retired and I decided to become a financial and a real estate investment, because that would allow me to stay home, spend more time with the kids instead of working for a company. And I never heard about option trading, never ever. And I remember talking to my doctor because I was working with a doctor side by side, internal medicine doctor, and in 2014, and I told him, I said, I'm going to retire. And he says, when? I go, within a year. He goes, can you afford to? And I said, no. And he says, I sure can afford to, retire to at least saved up $1 million or more. And I said, back in my mind, inside of me, I didn't have to tell him that I only had a $10 in my name, because I was living paycheck to paycheck. But inside of me, I said, if I work here, I would never make $1 million. Never, ever. Because 32 years I was living paycheck to paycheck.
Right. And that's something to remember. Like sometimes we think that, if we continue what we're doing with no change, will get wherever the quote unquote there is financially, right? And it takes a different mindset.
Yes, huge
It does.
mindset. I mean, I literally lit my mind. Like, I don't know. I just went again. I realized there's people out there, rich people out there, and they're not tied down to a 9 to 5 job like I was, or, working 60, 70 hours a week. And I don't know any one of them impersonally, right? So I heard about, Warren Buffett, all these rich people, right? So I said, there's people out there. I have never met anybody specifically because nobody was in my circle that was making that kind of money. But I thought, I'm just going to retire, So I retired in 2015. Year later. In fact, my doctor was on vacation. He didn't even have a chance to put a job, posting, replace me. I mean, I literally, every time I set a goal, I just go for it. One of those things that I think it ingrained in me as a little girl was like, I want to do that. I see it. I want to do what they do, and I could do it. I don't talk about or think about my limitations, right? So basically, I did that. And we went into,
No, so hang on a minute, because you said something very so naturally. You don't talk about or think about your limitations.
No.
So do you see that as a barrier for other people who say, I want to retire, but then they keep talking about limitations?
Oh, yeah.
So how do you help folks get beyond that?
Well, how I changed my mindset, how I lived and never talk about my limitation is that I'm sick and tired of the life that I was living. Even though it was my dream job, even though I was so excited to go to work every morning, as much as that when you don't make enough income to serve you, right? Not to live a luxury life, but just be comfortable. Just enough to go on a vacation once in a while, at least once a year, twice a year, right? I couldn't do that. So when you're sick and tired of your life, but maybe some people, they're not sick of it. Maybe they're comfortable. But are you happy with your current situations? Because there's so many opportunities that you could triple your income. You could, triple, like everything, your health, everything. There's a better life. But who's going to bring it to you? Nobody. Nobody's going to, I used to think like, oh, you'll be so nice if someone comes to me and says, oh, Sonia, you were an orphan. I feel sorry for you. You had a hard life. Here's your opportunity. I wish that would have happened to me. There's times when it came to my mind. It's like, I wish I would get a break. I wish someone would give me a break. But no. We literally have to change our own life. If you don't like what you are doing now or how your life is, whether it's a relationship with your job, with your finances, everything about in life you don't like, you change it. How? You have to just totally take a different action. You cannot use excuses of, I can't do that because it's not the right timing. I can't do it because I don't have enough money. I cannot do it because I'm going to step on somebody else's, it's going to ruin our family. No, you don't think about those things at all. You don't. You can't. You can't afford to. So think about it. Going back, if I want to learn to walk and I just wanted to be with my sister, right? That's all I wanted to do. Just be with her. Do you know where my life would be right now? I would probably be getting around with a wheelchair. And when I was 18, they would kick me out of the orphanage anyway. Once you're 18, you got to leave. And think about if I was just not just comfortable, or if I was afraid to, leave my job because I love my job. And if I was afraid of what other people are going to think about me, my kids, and my kids just say, Mom, what are you going to do? You've done that for 30 years. What are you going to do now? But if I was really living my life as to what people think about me, then I would still be working, making $16, $17 an hour. I would have never, ever discovered that I could make $1 million doing option trading. I would have never, ever able to go on a vacation for like a month at a time to Europe and Korea after I retired. I couldn't, I mean, none of those things are possible. So you can't think about what if. You're not here to please other people. And you also have to take care of yourself first to take care of other people. It's like if I don't know how to invest in myself, if I don't know how to nurture myself, if I don't know how to help myself, how can I help other people? How can I take care of my kids? How can I help them invest? How can I help other people? Just like when you go on an airline, you get on the airplane, the stewardess say, here's a mask. If there's an emergency, you got to put your own mask on first before you can save other people's life. That is literally my life. That's how I do it. Everything that I do, I'm doing it. I have to do it well so that I could teach. I could share. I can't say, oh, I heard about this from so-and-so and I think it's working. You can't say, I think it's working. You have to live your daily life as to what you're doing because it's a proof. It's a proof. Like you never know that I never like to talk or, now because I talk so much.
Well, I was thinking about that. I'm going, well, you got over not liking to talk. You got over not liking people and not trusting people. And you may not ever totally be quote unquote over it, but you moved beyond it. You haven't let it be a limitation. So,
yeah.
That's why I asked you a little bit about like, what do you do? Because I hear that a lot. People go, well, I'm going to do that when, or maybe I will do that. And when I hear the words maybe, or maybe I'll try, what I really translate it to is not now.
Exactly. Or no. Not now or no.
Right.
Yeah.
So I choose to say maybe. I will say we'll see. If someone says, are you going to do that? I'll say we'll see, because it's not what I've chosen to do at the moment.
Yeah.
But when the choice is made, the answer is, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm doing it now.
Yes. So you have to take your actions now because, we have so many people out there that are successful. Like someone could hear my story and people say, well, she's lucky. No, I'm not lucky. I had the worst luck. I didn't ask to be abandoned, right? It's not about luck. It's about, because, some people for example, some people could win a lottery and they were lucky. They ended up with all this money, but they lose. They lose it all. It's like, come on, and so you really have to just take actions with the reason behind, with a passion. Like, why are you doing this? And so when I was working with the doctors, I got to help patients feel better when they come in with the headaches, whatever, with the serious, diseases and whatnot, they've been diagnosed. And then I get to hear it and I get to, make them feel better. But I never got to, and so they all know me as like, oh, Sun Young is always happy and bubbly because I was at my dream job. But behind the curtain, they never knew who I was. And I wanted to retire and I want people to know my ugly, shameful stories that I used to cling on to. How I didn't trust the world, how I didn't trust anybody, how I hated the world. And yet here I am. Every single day, like the clothes that I get to wear, that I have more than one outfit to change into, I feel rich. I get to take a bath every day. I feel so rich and so lucky. And so, because in orphanage, I only took a bath once a year for 10 years or so. Once a year. Because we have to walk 2 miles to the public bath because we didn't have a bathroom like a normal bathrooms, even we didn't have a bathroom. We just had a toilet and there's nothing there. So to take all those kids pushing a wheelchair and having them walking with the crutches, walking, 1 or 2 miles to the public bath was a big, huge
deal.
deal. And I got to help push in the wheelchairs and all. But so every single day, even this morning, I take a bath. There's not one day goes by when I change my shoes, when I take a walk, I do jump ropes. I'm grateful. I'm living my dream life.
So I know this is a total shift in directions. How did you get into doing options? Because you You quit, you retired, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the next part of your journey is in options and mentoring, right? So
Yeah.
then you said you
So
didn't know anybody.
I didn't know anybody who's made the money with option trading. In fact, I have never heard about option trading. I remember my doctor would talk about with other drug companies, drug reps that they come and see him and says, "Oh, Doctor So and So, what stocks are you buying today?" And then that would just go over my head because I don't have any money to buy stocks over the stock market. But when I was preparing to retire, just like when you're trying to get a new job, you have to prepare and make sure that you have the next job lined up before you quit your old job. So that was me. Like I was trying to retire, but I thought I wanted to become a real estate investor, actually, because I didn't know anything about options or finances or anything like that. And then so I was attending classes and things. And when I went to real estate investment thing, I had a rental property and I was really bad at it. I wasn't making any money. So I went there to learn some skills. And they says, as a real estate investor, you make lots of money. And I said, yeah, I'm not. That's what I'm here. But anyway, they said, you could learn the option trading. And I said, what is option trading? And they're like, well, you could learn to make money with the stock market. And I said, oh, I never heard of that. And then, but what do you have to have? And they says computer. I said, oh, well, that's not for me. I hate computers. I don't know how to use the technologies. So I was like, that's not for me. I'll just stick with the real estate. And so, my husband and I, we took that, kind of prepared ourselves to retire. So even though I didn't have anything lined up, I was not making money as a real estate investor or anything like that. I just ended up retiring. And then I thought, you know what? That option trading sounds very fascinating and it's a challenge. And I'm not going to have a job to go to. And I'm going to take this on as a hobby because some people have a hobby and then they spend a lot of money, like hunting and fishing. And I thought, oh, I'm going to just take on this hobby and I'm going to make money, because I don't have any money to spend. I couldn't touch any of my retirement or 401ks, after 33 years, I have those, but I can retire, touch it because I was still, young. So I took a little bit of, educations that I learned from going to a few classes. And I literally took this as like my new job in 2016. And 2016, January 3rd, everybody went to school. Like my son, my kids went back to school. And then like my husband went to work and I said, goodbye, you guys. Have a good day. I'm going to work. And they're like, wait a minute, you just retired. Where are you going? And I said, I'm going to my office downstairs. It wasn't an office. It was just an extra bedroom, So I just called it an office. I said, I'm going to work. I didn't give any excuses. I didn't have to explain to anybody. It's like, I'm just going to work. And I took this on as a hobby. And I was practicing with the virtual money. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm making $50,000 in one day. And my husband was still working, right, for the government. He was making like $30 an hour, a lot more than me when I was, So I would text him and say, guess what? I just made like $50, 50,000, like in 3 hours. And I said, both of us said, it's too bad. It's not real money. And I go, I know. So it was my hobby and I practiced and I studied and I treated this as like my new job. And I took a regular lunch hour. I would go down there when the market was open at 7:30 till 2 o'clock. And yeah, I did that every single day. And I took my holidays off like everybody else. I just treated it like a new job. I'm the trainee.
How long did it take you to get to where you were actually using your own money?
So then 2017, I told my husband, this is silly. I said, I've got to start using real money. I can't play with this fake money and then make all this money and wishing that it was real money. And so 2017, so 2016, I practiced. So it didn't take me that long, but it was just my hobby. It was just curiosity and decided that, so then I said, I'm going to set a goal. I thought I'm going to start using real money, which I didn't have any money. So I ended up using home equity loan, So I borrowed the money from home equity loan and I set myself a goal and I thought I'm going to make, about 60,000. I'll be happy. If I was to make 30, 40, 50, 60,000 at the most by myself without having to work outside of the house, it'll be like my dream come true. So then I thought, how much do I have to make 60,000 a year? I broke it down to how much do I have to make a month? How much do I have to make a week? And how much do I have to make a day? That made the process so much easier. And I made my first year in 2017, 178,000.
Wow. So you recovered your initial home equity loan investment.
Yes.
Plus.
Yes.
Another 140.
And then a couple years later, my husband, and that's when I became a millionaire, was like 2000, let's see, I started with the real money in 2017, so about 2019, so 18, 19 there. So my husband retired in 2017, and he had a retirement money, and we decided that I'm doing so well, so I invested his money, and I turned that 164,000 to 604,000 in 11 months. If I did that in 11 years, that was still good money. You can't
Absolutely
find investment with any kind of investment companies.
Yep. That's a huge return.
That was like 204% in return. And so
I think the thing, Sun Young, that sets it apart is you took it on seriously. Like you studied for a year, you understood, you did it with play money, right? So you could see the ups and downs and what happened.
Right.
But you didn't just go in like, I'll just throw everything at it when you hadn't learned anything.
Right.
So, and I love that you said, I'm going to work now.
Yeah. I just treated it because I was used to working 9 to 5 or, so why not? I have that schedule, ingrained for 33 years. And I thought, why not? So you kind of duplicate, what schedule that I was used to, and a little bit change, like 7:30 to 2. And when kids got home from school, I was home and I was able to, fix a warm meals. And when my kids would say, Mom, at like 11 o'clock at night, and say, Mom, can you make like 30 egg rolls? Sure. Like next day, I go, when? It goes, oh, tomorrow we're having like a party at school. Sure. To me, that's like my dream job.
Right. And your commute is just downstairs.
Yeah, that was my dream life because I'm able to do that.
Yep.
So the things that I do that makes me a very successful person as an individual and where I'm able to execute, is that I basically tell myself I have every opportunity as other people. And I'm not going to use an excuse that said, no, I didn't have a proper education. No, I didn't get raised properly because I was malnutrition. And after I came to America, they fixed me up. I had a leg surgery. I had a lip surgery, they fixed me all up, but I just said there's a people out there and I'm going to find a way.
You are so inspirational.
There's no
inspirational. Okay, so you've written books, you've done a lot. I want to ask you as we're wrapping up the show.
Yes.
Think about maybe a young person at the age you were when you came here, or anybody now, what are one or two things that you would like to say to someone to help them remember some of the lessons you've learned?
Don't ever give up. You have to have a tenacity. No matter how hard the life is, no matter how hard the stairs that you have to climb, if you don't climb it, you'll never find the result. You'll never, ever be able to live your dream life. Ever. No matter how hard it is. Even though, and then the people be around you will say, come on, that's too hard for you. Come on, and you just have to be so focused and you have to discipline yourself. So you got to have that tenacity. You got to have that discipline. And you got to have your biggest why. Why are you doing this? You don't have to. You don't have to do the things that is uncomfortable. Just stay comfortable. No. Because every success person has a failure. They have failed at something. By somebody else's decision or by your own decisions that we have failed. Because if somebody, all the successful people, nobody's become so successful without any failure or not climbing any huge mountains, overcoming biggest obstacles that never even dreamed of. Like, I just can't believe still, like I did all this. I did all this. In fact, as I was growing up, I was living, before I lived my mindset about how I could do all these things. And I was like everybody else, living in a world with all these excuses. It says, invest in yourself and throw away your excuses and turn your life around. The reason I wrote this book is because I use all these excuses. Like, I'm not sure, someday, tomorrow, in the future, maybe someday later, I'll never do that. Next week, another day, oh, no, not yet. Oh, no, I can't do that. No, nobody told me I could. All these excuses, this is the reason why I wrote a book. I thought, I'm sick and tired of living like everybody else, just like using the same excuses. So yes. So yeah, also be my advice is don't ever give up and embrace the tenacity in your daily life and have that discipline. Discipline.
Okay, listeners, I have to tell you, I've smiled throughout this entire recording with Sun Yong and even before. So I know this is a podcast that's going to resonate with many, many of our listeners. I will re-listen to it. And because you're so delightful. So I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. And I'm going to go see you over on your YouTube channel.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's my pleasure to be in your podcast. You have a very, very nice podcast episode that you're providing for all of the people throughout the world. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/no labels, no limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.